Hey guys, welcome back. Well, it's really one of my first videos ever. I'm trying this YouTube thing, and the first video I thought of was doing a quick tier list of different animals that I've worked with. I'm here living in Nepal right now for 3 months, and I'm doing research right now on human wildlife conflicts and interactions and mitigation strategies. So I just thought it would be fun to record this quick little video. It turned out a lot longer than I expected it would be, but I'm gonna have a part two also. And I've worked with a lot of cool animals throughout my life, and I wanted to share some experiences with that and the pros and cons of working with different animals. So this one's gonna start off with some of the more tame, like less niche animals, and then go on to I think the last one I covered in this video was the wolves. So I hope you enjoy. Let me know if you have any questions, and yeah, hope you like it. Okay, so here's the tier list. Wait, I'm actually so excited for like no reason, but I know that my cam is covering the F, but just know the F is on the lowest tier, and it goes SABCDFEF. Oh my god. So, this tier list is kind of gonna focus on mammals and birds, but then I realized I have my alligator on here, so it's like kind of reptiles too, but ignore that. And let's start off with the least niche of the bunch. This is the dog. Um, I just realized I can't even move any of these. So, BRB. Okay, so it turns out Canva doesn't allow you to move things while you're presenting. Great. Well, I already spent some time making this tier list, so I'm just gonna cut in between. But first animal we're looking at is dogs, specifically pugs, because I worked at a pug rescue for a summer. And what an experience, honestly. Okay, I've worked with dogs in two capacities. One being a vet assistant at a small time, like slower local vet clinic, and also the second time while working at the pug rescue for a summer, and that was a very fast pace. There was like 50 or more pugs there. There was pugs of all ages too, like and pug mixes too, not all just like purebred obviously. There's like it's a rescue. It's a lot of strays. Um, and side note, I didn't even know that like a lot of pugs were on the street. Like I felt like pugs were kind of like, you know, sought after or like really like bred and I don't know, like did not expect them to be or a lot of them to be on the street and there are. So supports the your pugs out there in those shelters. um but my experience with dogs has been really positive. Obviously, like the I feel like everyone who's a dog person, at least, like if you don't like dogs, that's another thing. Like that is like a personal bias. But like for me, who has no problems with dogs, but also never had a dog, I don't have like a personal like bias towards dogs necessarily. I just feel like they one require a lot of work. They are loud. Uh, holy crap! It was like every time I walked into the pug rescue in the morning, it was like my ears would be shattered. Like every dog just starts like yapping their brains out, uh, going crazy over the fact that you're here. And literally, I come here every morning, but I'm so happy that you're happy that I'm here. And to get on with the point and stop rambling about these dogs. Um, I think it's hard to rank because obviously dogs are man's best friend. They're so friendly most of the time, and they're so nice, and they're cute, and you are exposed to them a lot more in like in general life. So I feel like you may have a better understanding of their behaviors rather than a lot of these animals on this list. But the interesting thing about dogs is that their temperaments can range like so much. And I'd say like from my experience, more so in dogs than in other animals. And like maybe it's from like a human perspective of knowing dogs' behaviors a lot more, but their range in like behavior and a way they act towards you can be so different. Whereas like wolves, which I'm about to get into later, like most of the time they're all pretty like wary of you. But dogs, you can have one dog that is like the most loving, cute, well behaved little precious fluff ball. And then on the other hand, there's some dogs out there where I was like literally afraid to go into their kennel uh, for fear of my arm being ripped off. And I would literally ask other employees to like help me with this one dog. I remember in the pug rescue, it was like there's one dog that absolutely could not get over my fear of, and she was just like really aggressive and loved biting people and very territorial towards other dogs, towards humans. Obviously it's a really sad case because you want them to be adopted and everything, and you know that like their temperament is going to like actively prevent them from finding a decent home. But at the same time, as someone from an animal care perspective, dogs can be a S or an F depending. So I'm gonna put them in C. Just sorry for the voice crack, and two, everyone who loves dogs is gonna want me to put them higher, but I feel like animal care perspective, it can just range so much that I just don't want to like, I don't want to like categorize all dogs because also every breed is so different. Like there's so much diversity within dog care. So, major respect to people who take care of dogs because, like, it's not easy. So, I'd say C tier for dogs after much discussion. Okay, next is cats. So, similar to dogs, I feel like cats have a very huge range of temperaments, but you can also guarantee a little bit more of calmness. I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but I feel like working with cats versus working with dogs, there's just so much of a different atmosphere. And cats, some can be very chaotic, but a lot of the time the noise level is so much lower. um in terms of like animal care perspective, poo and pee, I think cats are easier to deal with but smell worse, if that makes sense. Like I don't know how, but I feel like with the dogs, at least in my experience, dogs don't, maybe I'm just used to it. I don't know. Like I felt like working at a pug rescue versus working with cats at an animal rescue generally. I felt like the cat's room smelled way worse than the dog room because I don't even know why, but I think it's like also because the cat's room, it's a litter box usually. That litter box might not get changed as often. It's not as obvious as with dog poop and dog pee. You can like see it and like pick it up and mop it up. But cat poo and pee is going to be in a litter box, and that's like a different chore, and I feel like it doesn't get done as frequently, which is probably not the greatest, but I just know that like in a cat sanctuary, like cat rescue that I worked for also, I just remembered that one because that's different from the animal rescue that I worked at. Anyway, rambling, but anyway, um I just, yeah, I feel like cats smell worse but are much less chaotic in general. If you want a more peaceful workplace, then working with cats is better. And I also feel like the adopters between dogs and cats are very different. I think cats, people tend to be quieter. There's less like crazy and high energy uh spaces within that workplace. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just feel like so much more chill. So in this case, I'm gonna put cats in B tier because I just feel like they're a little bit, maybe I'll just put them in C with dogs because like there's just so many ups and downs with the both of them. No, I'm gonna put it in B because I think it's a little better than working with dogs, just because like I'm not even saying this as as a bias of like, oh, I'm more of a cat person. Like I do not have a preference. Like I love dogs, I love cats. But I just think in a work environment, cats are so much better to work with. But the major downside of cats is that they are aggressive. Working at a vet clinic, you know that like a dog is going to be 10 times more easy to handle, more like mostly talking in generalizations here always, but a bad dog, or like not bad dog, but like an aggressive dog is going to be 10 times easier to handle than a aggressive cat, because cats are vicious and they can jump, they can literally like hide places, they can they are so fast. You will never be able to catch them. They can scratch you. They can squeeze through the tiniest of places. You'll never be able to get them if they're like in a place where you can't like physically grab them. And so that's the thing with cats, is from a vet perspective also, that is a lot harder to deal with. So I was focusing on the rescue side of things at first, but now thinking about the vet side, cats are equally as hard to do as dogs. So I'm gonna put them in C. Decided they're both gonna be in C for now because I just feel like there's pros and cons, and every type of cat or type of dog is so different, and temperaments are so different. It's just like impossible to categorize that. So C tier. Now otters. So otters, I didn't really work with like for a ton of time, and I realized I went like fully off track with dogs and cats, so I'm trying not to like make this video like a half an hour long. But otters are chaos machines. Oh my, they were so chaotic. Like I I don't know. Like from a animal care perspective, I don't know if I've ever worked with a species as chaotic as otters. And I've worked with monkeys before. I literally worked at a primate sanctuary. So I they're really funny, and you'll never be bored working with otters. And also I love working with kids watching otters because I don't know what it is, but kids in general love otters, and talking to them about otters and just watching them play, because of their chaotic nature, it's always exciting to see an otter. They're swimming around super fast, they're running around, they're getting food. I used to like do this like program where I'd like throw out some food for the otters and talk to some kids about what otters are like, and basic facts, fun facts about otters. And I just always loved that program because young kids always connect with the energy of otters. But from an animal care perspective, they are very, very crazy, I guess. um like I said, I didn't work with them for that long, and realistically, I don't have like a ton of insights on like what specifically about them are like hard in the long term to work with, but I just know that they're very chaotic. They are they love to eat, but somehow like I don't know, maybe those are just the otters that I worked with, but they're a little picky. Like they won't eat everything that you give them. They're very picky. And yeah, I think their interactions are just so fun to watch that it makes it worth all the like chaos that comes with working with them. So yeah, I would say as far as this tier list, I think I would put otters. Honestly, this is so unfair because am I ever gonna put an animal in F? But like, I guess I'd put otters in. Uh, this is so hard. I'm gonna put them in B because I don't want to be too harsh right off the get go, and like I don't know. I don't have anything against them. So, be it is. Next is condors. So, I'm going to be specifically talking about the California condor here. And excuse this photo of a condor. It's like weirdly like not totally accurate, but it was one of the cuter ones I could find on Canva. So, sorry guys, but we're talking about the California condor here. And what an incredible species for one. They are super, super endangered, and there's a huge effort going on that is working on boosting the population of California condors, but also there's this huge like bird influenza that's happening also, and I encourage y'all to look that up and do your own research on that. I might make a video on it just because it is super interesting topic in conservation right now. But um I would say that working with the California condor was so exciting. I had a coworker once that described them as goth chickens, and I will never ever forget that moment because I just think it like kind of describes them really perfectly because condors have a very funny look to them, and at first when when I was assigned to work this section of this zoo that I was working at, I was like a little apprehensive about the condors. For one, I've been a little apprehensive about bird care in general since I worked at a bird part of a bird part of a sanctuary that had a lot of birds in it, and they would just like peck my arm off when I was trying to like move them to their night cage. That's a different issue. That's probably something with the sanctuary like rules and everything that they should not have been like letting me do that. But um I've been apprehensive about bird care in the past. And so looking at condors, they look like kind of scary, kind of intimidating. They're huge. Like, oh my gosh, when you come close to a condor, you realize that you are puny. You are weak. Like those guys are intimidating. Because their wingspan is like, oh my god, I don't want to get this wrong, but it's like crazy. Let me look this up real quick. But as I'm doing that, um I think condors are way less intimidating when you start working with them because they're kind of just they're scavengers, and they're not out to get you. They're not gonna like hunt you down and kill you. They're just looking for the dead stuff. So honestly, not too bad. And they never come close to you like willingly, to be honest. Like the only time I ever got super close to one was when I was cleaning their enclosure and they were outside, like separated by like a gate. So there was never a time where I felt threatened by them, but I know they could do some serious damage if they really wanted to. But I don't think I've ever heard of that happening. But case being, condors were a lot less intimidating than they appeared to be. They're nice goth chickens, And um and I think I would also put them on honestly, I'd put them at an A tier because one, they're not hard to clean up after. Two, they're highly endangered, so it's really important work when you're protecting the species. And three, they're chill. They're chill. They just like to eat dead things. So I'm gonna look this up right now. How long is the wingspan of a California condor? California condor. Because I was thinking about 6 feet, but I feel like I'm underestimating it. Yeah, 9.5 feet long, 3 meters. So these guys are huge, 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 huge. And yeah, I would definitely recommend looking into the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has a huge page on condors, also the National Park Service, NPS. I would just really encourage y'all to look into this like massive conservation effort happening to save the California condors right now because it's just so inspirational. So many things happening within that. area that I like every few months I check up on the news and there's a new thing happening. So check it out. On to the next one. A tier. Dude, I realized I'm probably gonna have to like split this into two parts because this video is getting long. But I feel like I have so much to talk about with these animals and I like never get to talk about them. So I'm gonna keep yapping and I'll probably do a part two at some point. But here is the gray wolf. Excuse this photo again. I don't know. I just didn't really try very hard looking for like accurate photos, like perfect to the species. But I specifically worked with gray wolves in two capacities. One was a zoo like captivity capacity, and secondly was wild wolves but in a camera trapping perspective, like research. So two different things there. From the research perspective, you hardly ever see them because you're using cameras to see them because they know where you are, you don't know where they are, and they usually have a lot of hiding places and will not be out during the day while you are. Um and also they're yeah, you're just not going to see them out in the wild that much even though their population number is increasing. There is a lot of debate within California and the West about the reintroduction of wolves. I might do a different video about that because that's a huge topic within itself. The basics of it is that living with carnivores is difficult. You know, like we like to idealize this world where we can save every species and we want every species to be how it was before human influence came into the picture and removed them. And yes, ideally, they would be living where they were, originally living before any human influence. But right now, that's not the reality of this world, you know? It's like humans have a huge landmass of territory and we have homes, we have families, and we can't just ignore people who live in rural areas' concerns about living with carnivores. Like, that's not how conservation works. So I think a lot of times maybe people within this urban rural divide debate, I guess, might think that on the urban side might think that they might have some perspective differences on what it is really like to live with wolves because they do have an impact on human lives. And I don't want to I don't want to crack the fantasy of like, having these animals back in California because it is important. I think wolves are a huge, huge ecological keystone of support within the West in general. You can see that within Yellowstone. It's a huge story of success with wolves there. But in California, there is a debate and a worthy debate of whether what kind of impacts carnivores have on ranchers' lives, on the livelihoods of people living in rural areas, and also like their feeling of safety and that's valid concerns. And yeah, there's a huge conversation to be had with that, and I'm not going to get into it here. But this is just from a perspective of having worked with gray wolves mainly in a captive setting. So I worked at a zoo and we had a pack of 5 or 6 wolves, and I think it was 6. And it was a family group, so no none of them were mating or anything like that. But I had the greatest time. I mean, honestly, the wolves were probably top 3 animals I've ever worked with in my life because they are so cool. Looking into a wolf's eyes just makes you like rethink your reality. Like I don't know how to describe it. Maybe it is like some sort of like societal like stepstone or like like pedestal that we've put wolves on that it makes it feel like wow, I'm looking into this like gorgeous like majestic animal's eyes. But also I just think that like with certain animals you can really see the depth within their minds churning and like their thought process as they're looking at you. I think like those kind of animals just intrigue me a lot because you can hear the gears turning and you can, emphasize or empathize with them. You can see how they are socializing and learning and connect that to your experience. So I don't know, I just feel like wolves in general are such a cool animal to learn from. And you know, I haven't interacted with them obviously because like although it's a captive setting, you're not gonna like be playing around with wolves or whatever. They're very timid. They will not engage with you if you're doing things right on the management side. I feel like if they were raised with you, that might be a different concern. But like obviously, wild wolves will not approach you and be very, very timid and also not directly accept the food that you give them at times. Like if you're doing a training, for example, where they have to present something for medical reasons, it'll take a long time to build that trust. And they are not, definitely not like dogs in that way where they automatically trust you. Well, some dogs don't do that either, but you know what I mean. And I think wolves in terms of like funny habits, I loved that they like would take certain food items and they'd like just watching their social interactions unfold with food is so interesting because the parental unit of the pack, I learned that alpha and beta are not actual terms within science of like scientific perspective of wolf care. You would say the leader of the pack or the what is the proper term? I think it's just like leader or most dominant, the dominant member of the pack, which is usually the parental unit or yeah, usually the parental unit or like the most strong sibling. So that being said, just watching that dynamic unfold of like which individual in the pack is getting to the food first, which is the most high value food, which animals. There's also a research going on at the same time when I was working at the zoo that was kind of like looking into personality within wolves and problem solving. Also, I have a different video on my YouTube that is interviewing Yasmin, and she is a postdoctorate, or I think, yeah, postdoc, looking into the problem solving of. Sorry, she's a doctorate student getting her PhD. That was looking into wolf problem solving and just looking at their social dynamics within which ones are more confident with solving a problem, which ones are going to get the food faster, which ones are going to be more timid, less timid. It's just like differences like that are so interesting to me. And from a animal care perspective, one, prepping their food is kind of gross at times. If you are squeamish, that may not be the best for you. I had to chop up a few rabbits at times. I had to feed them pigs and stuff like that. Um, and there were obviously like other nutritious things that we were giving them too. But yeah, a little squeamish at times. Uh, but for me, as someone who's worked in animal care before, it wasn't like that bad because I've also had to feed other animals that were carnivores, and it's not that bad. You know, rats and stuff like that. You get more used to it with time. But yeah, just so fascinating to me because they are so relatable at times, like with their social structure, problem solving. It's just things that you can like relate to within your own life, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's a sibling relationship. Look how they're playing with each other. Look how they're talking. Communicating with one another. A lot of wolf communication is body language, and it's so interesting how some of those body language cues are so innate to us. Like something with the tail, you just automatically know that they might be feeling scared or they might be feeling confident or it's just different things like that. I think that's always interesting to see every day. And just prepping their food, prepping problems for them to solve, enrichment. It was just so cool to work with. So cool. S tier, honestly, S tier, because I love wolves, and maybe I'm just biased, but I think they're so incredibly fascinating. I don't know. S tier. And that's it for today's video, tier list video. First tier list video ever, or first like actual YouTube video besides a vlog. So I'd call it a success. And yeah, I hope you guys liked it. I'm gonna have a part 2, so make sure to watch that one too.